You've got a great idea for a small business, but you just can't get it off the ground. You want to be your own boss, set your own hours. Well, new year means new opportunities, and Shopify's got you covered to help get your venture off the ground. Shopify makes it easy to manage your growing business. You can get your store up and running easily with thousands of customizable templates. And they help with the details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard. Don't kick yourself next holiday season when your 2025 resolution list looks the same as it does today. Make it happen with Shopify. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/income.
This episode is brought to you by DistroKid. Hey everybody, today's guest is Matt Collyer, guitarist and lead vocalist for the Canadian ska punk band The Planet Smashers from Montreal, Quebec. Together we break down the writing, recording, and inspiration behind the fan favorite hit, Too Much Information, taken from their 2019 album of the same name. I told Matt I love the fact the Planet Smashers have been around for over 30 years, and it's one of their new songs that we are not only talking about today, but it's quickly become one of their signature tunes. Recorded in Montreal, the effort was self-produced by the band, and man, does this track sound awesome. You can tell they've been a band for a while. This isn't a new group of musicians just cutting their teeth. The performance is great. The chord arrangement is basically one idea, but the parts that are weaving in and out are brilliant. Too Much Information is one non-stop chorus, and that particular lyric is said in every part of the song except for the bridge. Oh, and for a band that doesn't consider themselves dub at all, the dub breakdown in the middle of this tune is glorious. So for all this and a chance to hear Matt laugh every single time I read one of his lyrics, don't you dare go anywhere.
Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast.
So before we started recording here, Matt, we were talking about how we've crossed paths quite a bit lately, Less Than Jake and the Planet Smashers.
Yeah, it's been a good little year. You know, we had some nice festivals earlier in the summer, and man, it was great. Like, you guys are playing great. Like, seriously, I mean, it's really fun to watch you play, and also you're like my wife's favorite band, so.
Well, that's very nice.
That makes it an added bit of fun for me, you know.
Well, thank you. Very nice of you to say. And did you guys join us on, was it the Montreal or Toronto show?
Toronto at History. It was phenomenal.
It was phenomenal. I thought that was a bit odd, being you're from Montreal, but I think that show was doing well enough ticket-wise. But we did add the Smashers to our tour back in March, so thanks for playing with us. And that was an awesome show, an awesome venue.
For us, that was a great way to start. We started a little UK tour, and that was just added on before, and it was just like, wow, this is going to be a lot of fun. It was our first fly-in ever to Toronto. It doesn't make sense for us to do that, but because we're going to the UK, we got to fly in, kind of, special.
Awesome. Well, you guys formed around the same time as Less Than Jake, 1993, and now that we're into 2025, 32 years as a ska punk band doesn't seem like it's possible.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be legal.
I mean, I look at it every day and I'm like, well, maybe this is the last year, and it just keeps on going, and we're very fortunate, to be playing music still, and I get to see the guys in the band, and it's like nothing, not a single day has passed, and we really get along very well these days, and I think I see that with you guys too. So
yeah, well, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. There was no litmus test. When I was 16 years old, the Rolling Stones were on their Steel Wheels tour, and it was. I remember we were making fun of them, like, this is 1989. They had been a band for 25 years. think about that. I remember thinking like 25, I'm not going to live to be 25. How are they a band that long? And here we are 30 years later, still playing the kind of music that we love. And I'll tell you something that I love and admire is the song we're going to talk about today, Too Much Information, is from the album of the same name released in 2019. So this is a relatively new song in the Planet Smashers catalog.
Oh, it's brand new.
It's essentially brand new. You know, we lost a couple of years to the pandemic. You weren't touring then. So this song's only a couple of years old, but yet it's become a fan favorite. This song's awesome.
Oh, thanks. That's very kind. I mean, like, I'm pretty proud of this one. You know, there's some songs you write and you look back and you're like, how did they get on the album? I mean, what were we thinking, you know? Mm-hmm. But this is one where I'm actually, I'm proud of this one.
You should be. Did you demo this track?
We did. We did a little garage demo thing. I did it in my basement and I brought it to the guys. The version that was done in the basement, you know, they fixed it. They made it way better and they brought in some melody and a few other cool things. The horns weren't done. They brought that all in. So it's a group effort. You know, I started it, but they turned it into what it is, or you know what it ended up being. And it was really, lyrically it kind of changed through the process. But we'll probably get to that down the road, I imagine.
We are, yeah. I couldn't find any info though, Matt, regarding who produced this or where it was recorded. Could you fill us in with that?
It's recorded in Montreal. It's effectively self-produced. The engineer, his name's Rod Shear. He's been around for a long time. He's an old guard. He did Corey Hart.
Nice.
Yeah, he was the engineer for Corey Hart. That's where he started. And since then, he's done tons of stuff from Arcade Fire all the way up and down to the ska world. So he's been around.
Okay. Is Le Studio still there in Morin Heights?
It's gone. It burnt down.
It's gone.
Yeah. Something nasty happened. There was something about like some guy started stealing. This Rod told me this because he used to do a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
Something bad happened. Like there's a lot of locals up there, and I think one guy got cheesed off because the main owner was, not hiring him as much anymore. So mysteriously, the door was left open, and they came up the next day, and everything was gone. Like not everything, but everything you could get your hands on was gone. And then it burnt down a little bit. Half of it burnt down. Great studio. The Police did, a couple of their huge albums there. Not Synchronicity.
Rush did stuff there. Doughboys, one of my favorite Canadian bands, recorded at Le Studio, and I always wanted to go there. I never had a chance, but I guess I can't do that now. But where did you record it at? What studio? Let
me see. It's just Mixart in downtown Montreal. So
okay.
It's not too far from my house. It's a nice SSL board. They got some old gear. There's some Ghost in there. There's. What's that? You press the button a little bit because those old boards,
Sure.
They don't get the love they used to.
Did you guys cut this to Pro Tools?
Yep.
Okay. This recording, and don't take this the wrong way. I figured you work with some big name producer or something. It sounds amazing. The tones you guys got, the mix, it's as pro as you can get.
Right on, man. Thank you. And that's testament to Rod's experience. He's done a few other albums for us. He did Mighty, which is probably it's one of our best sounding records, and Unstoppable, which was also produced by Chris Murray too. That one, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love Venice Shoreline, Chris Murray.
I just saw him a little while ago.
Nice. Well, if you see him again, tell him I said hello. I'm choosy about certain words I use with guests here on the show, Matt. I never want to offend or anything, and I don't think this is necessarily a bad word, but for a song, a 3-minute long ska song, this thing takes you on a ride, but the song is very linear. There's not, the chord progression. It's just kind of this one idea, but I speak about this a lot in the show. It's the parts that filter in and out. It doesn't have to change progressions and do these crazy things. I have a hard time. I wish I could write more songs like this. It's just kind of one idea that goes along, and I find the older I get, I want to cram more stuff, unnecessary things in a song.
Every once in a while, I try to do an exercise where I just try to keep it in the same chord progression and really focus on the melody to get the differences, whether it's coming from the bass guitar or from the horns or from a vocal change. I try to do that because when I listen back to a lot of the old music that I like, the 60s stuff, they get locked into a chord progression. So much of it is just 2 chords,
Oh my gosh!
And you can't imagine how they didn't want it. I'm like, there was no pressure to change the progression. No, it was all about melody and groove.
You listen to some of that Peter Tosh stuff. It's C to F for 4 minutes.
That's it. And it's amazing how they do that. So we try to do that. We're currently finishing up an album right now. We're doing that process again, where we're actually trying to write one that's even more chord change static, like not a lot going on with the chords. But again, the instruments are coming in and out, and the melodies are being interlaid, and we're trying to approach this one as a round. We'll see if it works. Like taking certain melodies and dropping to the chorus, and then it's in the verse the next time. So we'll see. It might be a dud.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I always, when everyone was trying to put tags on things in the 90s, and I was always very careful to give respect to those traditional ska bands that came before us. I loved all the trad ska. Yeah. But, my band came from a different place. We were kind of this punk rock band with a horn section. They'd say, hey, you're a ska band. I'd say, well, if you want to label us that. But, I've always had much respect for being able to pull off what I call a traditional ska sound. And you guys have that here. There's that component of it, but I'm also hearing other stuff. And as we get through the song, I want to talk about some influences. I'm hearing some things here, but ultimately it sounds like the Planet Smashers. And I want to jump into the track. It's 3 minutes and 7 seconds of absolute catchiness. The intro is the whole band does this pickup note. And man, I went to like 5 different YouTube plays. I went to Spotify, I went to Apple, and I'm like, what is going on? Let's talk about that before we go any further. that hiccup, because I'm going, did the studio master this wrong? Did they send it out? It's on every single one. And I went, no, this is intentional. It's cool.
Yeah, when I first heard it, they send the mix back from the studio. I'm like, oh God, that's really weird. It doesn't feel natural. It's our drummer. He really wanted this Scott really wanted this to be the beginning of the song. He's like, we've never started a song on an up. I'm like, all right. So, sometimes we're playing shows and you do the count and I'm like, oh yeah, right. This one.
I saw you look back at him on a live video from 2017. Or no, it wasn't 2017. This came out in
2019. It's probably right there.
Yeah, but I saw you look back at him and you're kind of, and it's because of that intro, right?
Yeah, it throws me off. And, to this day, yes, it makes it sound very unique. Would I do it again? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I called my producer last night, Chris. He didn't answer. That's what I was calling for, Chris. But he didn't answer. I was going to say, dude, you got to listen to this. And then I went ahead and went to some different uploads of it. And yeah, that's the way it is. But I think it's cool. It's jarring, but once you settle in, I'm like, okay, this is where I'm where the count comes in here. But the whole band does this pickup note to lead into 8 bars of drums, bass, clean upstroke guitar panned off left, trombone and sax, a funky organ panned off right, and a tambourine nice and loud. Matt, is there keys panned off left doing the upstrokes with the guitar?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I thought that I could hear the air from the organ with the guitar over there. There's just so much going on. I wasn't sure, but it is confirmed. It is there. The band stops at the end of this intro, and then we get a cool little tambourine flutter and 4 pops of the snare drum with the lyric of the song, Too Much Information. And this Too Much Information, what I love about the song is how it goes back and forth. Yes, there's a chorus, but the whole song's a chorus. You hear too much information. Yeah. And talking about that linear thing, a song can be linear and a simple chord progression if you have what I say, these parts weaving in and out. And I love this Too Much Information. It's just 2 voices with like a harmony. But then there's other Too Much Informations later that's more of a gang vocal, and we'll get there. And I want to know how you figured out which ones were going to be which. That's something I wanted to ask you.
Well, okay, this is coming from we're going back, the roots that I used to listen to when I was a kid, and this is the Selector Too Much Pressure. Like we're pulling out of that, and we wanted to try to do something like it, but not quite. If we can't do that, we will never be able to do what they did. So
too much pressure, end up in the money. Too much pressure, you can't feel it time all day. Too much pressure, it's too much pressure. Too much
we're just taking, that inspiration, that influence and putting into that sort of songwriting structure.
And that song's 3 chords. Pressure
know.
by Selector. Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Not 2, it's 3.
Yeah. Is it 3? Oh yeah, you're right. Yep. Yeah, 1, 4, 5. So we were doing that, and I guess the lyrically it just kind of fit to be able to introduce a song as the title, and then come back to it and tag it.
I love your delivery on this song. I feel like you're being serious, but it's a little bit of tongue in cheek and kind of a little bit of, I don't know, I want to say a tad of snottiness in here. I'm hearing a little Fishbone. I'm hearing a little Oingo Boingo, a little
nice.
David Byrne Talking Heads with the delivery of the vocal. Would that be safe to say those are all influences?
They all are. All of them. All of above.
Okay.
Everyone, Fishbone, my gosh, Angelo, I remember meeting him on the streets in Montreal. We were on Prince Arthur. I was just a kid going to his show, and I see him, and he's got his devil sticks out, and he's doing this in the middle of the restaurant district. And I'm eating a cookie, and I come by and say, "Oh man, I come to your show. I can't wait to see you." He's like, "Oh, can I have some of your cookie?" I'm like, "Sure." I eat my cookie. And since then, I was locked. I want to be like him.
Yeah, isn't that funny how you meet your heroes and it's just completely different than what you think? It's like, okay, it's going to be this way, and here he is asking me for a bite of my cookie.
That's it. He was just having a good time. Okay, back to the song. Right.
Back to the song. Too much information, that vocal we're talking about. It's the smaller vocal I'm talking about here. This vocal starts off verse 1.
You have a story to tell me, but I'm afraid to even hear of it. Too much information. I fear that you might take some liberties and think you can abuse this. Too much info. We have a friends, and that's great. But must we share everything when you do it? Or am I mistaken and we are closer than I even knew of it? Too much information.
You have a story to tell me, but I'm afraid to even hear of it. Too much information. I think that you might take some liberties and think you can abuse this. Too much info. Yeah, we're friends, and that's great. But must we share everything when you do it? Or am I mistaken and we are closer than I even knew of it? And you're laughing because you've never had your lyrics read to you.
Not like that. That was it's something. Maybe I should try doing that more often.
Did you ever watch the show Remote Control on
I
MTV?
did.
Okay. The Ken Ober the host, used to recite lyrics as poetry, and he would read them kind of like I do. And every time I do this, I think of that, you know? And you would see, and he would read lyrics of these huge hit songs, but having them read to you and not sung, very rarely did anybody ever get what the song was.
I mean, it changes the whole, the feel of it. Because for me, it's so remote control now. When I play and sing the song, you don't really think about it. But
Sure.
But to hear it again, yeah, you can see we're sort of pushing words in there just to make them fit, but
Right, and there was a couple things in here. And again, I'm always careful when I talk to guests not to offend. You are from Montreal. Is English your first or second language?
it actually is my first.
Okay, well, and I would lean towards that, knowing you, to say it was your first. You speak great English. There is some words here that are a little odd with the English language. Was that on purpose?
It's somewhat, because I'm trying to create a sense of unease, like I'm that's where I'm trying to get. And at the time, I guess it worked to a certain extent. We talked about trimming certain lyrics here and there, but we kept it wordy.
Danny Elfman and David Byrne would do that. They would sing stuff that you kind of would like make you, why'd they sing it that way? And it was definitely calculated. It was definitely on purpose. And as a songwriter, I wish I could be a little more liberal with that. I have a hard time, and I'll get called out for it. It's like, well, that's not correct English or correct grammar. And sometimes in rock and roll, it doesn't matter.
It's true. It doesn't matter in rock and roll to a certain extent. But I remember recording this one lyrically, and the guys, I think it was Dave, was in the studio, back by the board, and he's like, I think you could say it this way. It flows, it's a little less wordy. I'm like, well, I kind of want the wordy. I kind of want the awkward, cumbersome feel. And I think it kind of worked.
And what are you speaking about overall here? Too much info. It's just we're getting bombarded with the news, social media, your phone blowing up, everything.
I mean, that was the genesis of the song. It was about overexposure, everything. And it was actually about trying to write a song about something that was fresh, but everything's out there already. So what are you going to write about? Anyone can Google everything now. So, when I was a kid, so much of my education came from what these songwriters were writing about, because I didn't know anything about it. and then you'd be like, what's this all about?
Yeah, it was between what they were writing and between the magazine we get on the store shelves that was 3 months old news-wise.
Yep. And now it's, you can't really do that, but it's still important to be, I still take pride in those artists that are whatever, politically active, that are out there trying to present something, some positive change. That's awesome. But for me, it felt kind of weird to be preaching that at that time. And that's where it came from. But then it kind of just sort of flowed into the situation. I don't think Scott's going to listen to this from my band. He probably won't. At the time, he's great. I love him.
Then you could. So what you're saying is you could throw him under the bus. He's not going to hear this.
The bus. He was, he had a girlfriend and things were going really well.
That's what happens.
I was like, I could probably turn into this. Also, my mother-in-law kept on saying, too much TMI.
I was telling my band recently, and this is a perfect example. I want to play them this song next time I see him, but I want to write a song that, this is the kind of song that you can go play to an audience that doesn't know who your band is, and they're going to love and enjoy themselves for 3 minutes.
That's
I
really
feel
cool.
It's instant. Yeah, it's one of those tunes that's just kind of instantaneously catchy. There's no one standout part, I think. It's too much information through the whole song, and it's super, super catchy. Verse 1 has a lot going on here. The second too much information is the smaller one. It's got the vocal and the harmony, but it's not the big one we're going to get to later, as well as the too much info. There is a harmony on that, but it's the smaller one. Drums, bass, that clean upstroke guitar, tambourine, and that organ panned off right are all playing here. The bass tone is just so good.
Yeah.
The bass sounds amazing on this recording.
Rod and Dave, they like that sound. That's their thing. And it really works on this album.
The bass almost sounded like, and I was going to ask if it was what were those, the DX27, the old keyboard bass.
I mean, that would have been cool.
It has an electronic kind of punch to the tone. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say that was me, but it wasn't me at all.
You're not going to take credit for that. All right.
I can't, but they did a great job. And, that's what I like about the process of this song in particular, is that there's a lot of input from a lot of different people all getting on board this sort of simple idea. So it's kind of nice.
That's awesome. That organ here, panned off right, is playing single note hits with the snare in verse 1, but branching off the second half, it's nice and loud in the mix. That's the other thing. When Less Than Jake puts an organ on our records, we don't have an organ player, a keyboard player. It's kind of like background. But when you have someone that's on stage with you that's that good of a player,
he's great.
I want to hear it. And man, you can hear the organ here. It's awesome. On the lines, yeah, we're friends and that's great, but we must share everything when you do it. The sax is just on these 2 lines, kind of buried back in the mix. I love that. I love that it's on those 2 lines. It's like this little feature part. Talk to me about that. When you were working up the song, was that something that happened in the studio, or was that kind of the idea from the get-go?
This is one of the songs where you thought you knew what the horn line was going to be when going into studio. We had one, and then they whipped out this other one. And I was like, oh, I didn't see that. It fits with the offbeat beginning of the song. It's kind of odd and at times awkward. If not, it's not the traditional sort of smasher, happy horn line. And I guess that's where it came from. Alex brought this in. Pat Taylor, a trombone player, he kind of knew about that there's going to be a change. He wasn't totally aware. It took them a while to lock this one in.
Well, I don't know if I've ever said this in so many words on the show, but being in a band with horn players for the last 30 years, I either love a song with horns in it or I hate it.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground with me. Horns are a tough instrument. They can step on a vocal real quick. They can get in the way real quick. And I think that this song is perfect horn wise. Chorus 1 comes in at 36 seconds in the song.
Too much information. Too much information. Too much information.
It's just too much information said 3 times, but it's not the super loud one. We're still getting the smaller one. Your lead vocal's not out front yet. Was that on purpose? Did you want to keep this back a little bit so the song could build later?
That's exactly it. I mean, Rod, like I said, he's an older guy. He comes from the idea of songs have to keep giving. And that's where he's coming from. So, yes, he was the engineer, but his production and his mixing, you can kind of hear his production input through his mixing.
I think it's perfect. I don't think the song would have suffered had all the, what I'm calling the chorus parts, been a huge gang vocal.
It could have been. You're absolutely right.
It could have been, and I'm sure live you're seeing that wherever the whole crowd singing that part.
Oh,
yeah.
Are you waiting? The world, it falls apart.
Hey everybody, don't go anywhere. We got lots more coming up with Matt Collyer after a few words from our sponsors.
Looking to elevate your music career? DistroKid is a digital music distribution service that enables musicians to distribute their music to online stores and streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon, Tidal, and many more. DistroKid collects earnings and payments, sending them to you, the artist. With DistroKid, artists unlock a world of possibilities. From easily paying collaborators with splits, to securing your music with DistroLock, DistroKid covers all bases. Plus, you can promote your releases with Hyperfollow and create eye-catching visuals with a Spotify Canvas generator, all for free. But that's not all. Introducing the DistroKid app, now available on iOS and Android. Artists can manage their releases, view streaming stats, and withdraw earnings, all from the palm of their hand. And for those looking to perfect their sound, check out Mixia. With its simple interface and customizable mastering options, artists can make their music sound polished and professional within minutes. And don't forget about Instant Share, DistroKid's newest feature. Share large files securely with collaborators, producers, and more, ensuring your music streams at the highest quality. Ready to take your music to the next level? Download the DistroKid app and explore their suite of tools today. Plus, listeners can enjoy 30% off their first year by visiting distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes. That's distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes.
The Apple Watch Series 10 is here. It has the biggest display ever. It's also the thinnest Apple Watch ever, making it even more comfortable on your wrist, whether you're running, swimming, or sleeping. And it's the fastest charging Apple Watch, getting you 8 hours of charge in just 15 minutes. The Apple Watch Series 10, available for the first time in glossy jet black aluminum. Compared to previous generations, iPhone XS or later required. Charge time and actual results will vary.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
Hey there, Krista Makes a Podcast listeners. Ready to take your podcast experience to the next level? By signing up for the supporting cast at KristaMakes.com, you not only ensure the continued production of our show, but also unlock exclusive perks. Subscribers receive a weekly bonus episode of our other podcast, The After Party, co-hosted by Chris Fafalius and myself. Many fans rave that The After Party is just as enjoyable as the main show. And with close to 200 music-centric episodes in the archive, there's a treasure trove of entertainment awaiting you. Thank you for tuning in and for your support in keeping the podcast going strong. Join us at KristaMakes.com and let's keep the fun conversations going.
Ready to do all that you can and stop.
And now, back to the show.
Having that hook, too much information, it's like, what's the chorus, what's the verse? And that's what I think is brilliant about this song. The intro horns come back in here in chorus 1 with that super catchy horn line and those keys. I'll say it again, they are so fun here. And then we go right into verse 2.
Much information. You keep asking me to come and whisper secrets into my ear. Too much information. Good idea, cause your story should never be for anyone to hear. Too much info. You seem amused, and that's not great. Yeah, what must I do to get away from you? Or am I mistaken and we are closer than I ever knew? Too much information.
You keep asking me to come here, whisper secrets into my ears, too much information. A good idea because your story should never be for anyone to hear, too much info. You seem amused and that's not great. Yeah, what must I do to get away from you? Or am I mistaken and we are closer than I ever knew. You're laughing again at me, Matt. Come on.
I love the way you're delivering it.
I need to come up to Canada and do spoken word poetry of all Planet Smashers lyrics.
Yeah.
I'll sell dozens of tickets.
Dozens and dozens. Just a couple. Yeah, that's just, you're in an awkward moment and you're kind of cornered and the story's coming out and you're just like, I guess I'm just going to listen to everything and just kind of like, you've been there where you're talking to someone and you're like, oh God, I really got to go tune my guitar or whatever. I got to go, I got to practice up, get my vocals going. And you're just like, okay, how can I get out of this politely, without upset? Because, you like the person. They're just taking some liberties with the friendship.
Yeah, it's when you're staring out the window in the dressing room. You're like, oh, there's Punk Rock John. It's like your friend's like, who's that? And you're like, oh. He's the guy that put on our first show here in Ottawa. We got to let him in, but he eats all our food and drinks all our beer. And by the end of the night, he's a nightmare.
Yep. But you love him. I mean, like you still do it because, he did the first show in Ottawa.
He did the first show in Ottawa. Too Much Information is still the smaller one here. Too Much Info is the smaller one as well. But there's a lead vocal that does this kind of with that Too Much Info there. Talk to me about that. Was that ad-libbed or was that on purpose? Because they kind of clash with one another, but it's cool.
They trip each other up, and it's actually something that it was a bit, not an argument in the studio, but I actually wanted to do that more. And they're like, no, you're tripping into stuff. And if you really have to do this, do it in the second, because we've already established what the chorus is. So have a little ad-lib there.
Yeah, that's the one part in the song. There's always one thing in a song. This is minor. That was a little weird to me. I'm like, whoa, there's a rub there, but I like it.
It is a rub. And, I think if I could go back, I probably would take it out because I think the guys were right, and you're sort of confirming that. And it's actually kind of nice to hear because I always think I'm right.
I know. So do I. I'm the singer. Come on. I got to be right. The back half here on You Seem Amused and That's Not Great. Yeah, what must I do to get away from you? The sax is louder here as opposed to verse 1 and the vocal melody changes on those two lines. That's where I kind of hear like that sophisticated David Byrne coming out. Like you kind of change your delivery there a little bit.
I was trying to get a little more humorous, a little more satirical in delivery. And the whole song was going to be like that. I love the B-52s. I love Fred's delivery. And that's a bit of an influence there, too. This sort of dry and
There's a lot of guys that Peter Wolf from Jake Isles Band's another one. He's got that crazy delivery and those. Yep. I already mentioned, Danny Elfman. And those are the kinds of artists I would never try to cop at karaoke, never try to emulate because you just can't. They got their own thing.
They definitely do. I wish I was a singer that could, I wish I was a real singer, one that can actually project, the emotion that the R&B artists get and all that, that's amazing. I tend to be, I have a forte with the dry, I'm just talking to you sort of voice. And that's pretty much all I got.
Well, I think that was, it's definitely a lot of traditional ska has that. It's not definitely crazy left of center. Something else, though, the last line is pretty much the same line as verse 1. Or am I mistaken? We are closer than I ever knew, but you put of it on verse 1. Why was it left off here, verse 2?
I guess the guys won at the board. Come on, maybe they let me do the little ad-lib thing. And they're like, okay.
Well, am I mistaken? And we are closer than I ever knew. I mean, putting the of it doesn't really need to be there. But again, there's no rules in rock and roll. It's there on the first one. If anything, I probably would have put it on the second one.
You think it would have made it, but no, cutting.
It's funny how you uncover these little points of contention within the studio, and I've had this happen before with guests. They'll say, "Yeah, the other guys were kind of like frowning on that." I go, I wonder why.
But it makes sense, and it's interesting coming back and looking at it again. I've forgotten about those moments in studio, but they were very, very much relevant when it comes down to how the song ended up being. So it's kind of cool.
Absolutely. Well, something interesting here happens on chorus 2. The first 2 bars, there's like an open hi-hat or a splash cymbal that happens. It doesn't happen in chorus 1. And it's like hitting with the hi-hat. What is that all about?
I mean, like we recorded these drums live. You know, the guitars, drums, and bass are live. The bass was redone, but the guitar and drums were kept. I think Scott was just feeling something, and that was a cool take. So we're like, that's a cool take. Let's do that one, you know?
It sounds like an overdub.
Yeah, well, it's not. Yeah,
It's not.
He's just going, and I guess he did something. And that I remember, you know, you go through all the different takes, and you're like, well, this one's really nice.
Rarely do you, I mean, usually it's like, okay, 2 bars and then we'll change the back half. It'll be a bigger hi-hat. You know, we'll open it up. And here it's only 2 bars and the rest of it is a smaller hi-hat. Yeah. Very interesting placement. I would never think of doing that. And you don't know how many tricks that I've stolen from songs I've broken down on here. And that's a cool one because it made me go, why does chorus 2 sound different? I can't figure it out. And finally on the 5th or 6th time, it hit me over the head. Wow, those first 2 bars. Yeah. It's awesome.
And he does it live too. And I think it actually kind of works with the song. It creates a bit of almost anxiety, like in this sort of
Too much information. Too much information. Too much info.
The trombone and saxophone get busier here with a new horn line. And this horn line is just, I didn't think you could get catchier from the first one. And this one is catchier. The first 3 lines here, too much information, and too much info. We don't get the formation in chorus 2. We just get too much info on the third one. The vocals and the harmonies are bigger here. They're not the lead vocal that we're going to get to later with the harmonies, right? That says too much information.
We're still in unison. Well, not unison, but
yeah, they do seem a little bit bigger. Unison with a harmony.
Yep.
I love that in chorus 2, and it's not the full gang vocal yet, though.
That's right, man. And you know, I guess the short too much info on the third one there is to give the horns a bit more space, and also I believe the chord progression changes ever so slightly. It ascends a bit more rather than does the descending. So
coming out of chorus 2, we go into an 8-bar post-chorus. The horn part morphs and changes yet again. The interplay between the horns and the keys is killer.
Too much info.
It's awesome. And what they're doing back and forth, not only is there overtones, but there's some notes that they hit that I couldn't tell if it was the horns or the keys. It's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah,
cool.
and not in a sense of, oh, this is a bad mix. I can't tell what's going on. They just blend so well.
That line in that section was already written. We knew that what that was going to be, but the keys were recorded after the horns were done. So it gave him a bit of chance to sort of see where things were lying. And Patrizio, he's a really good musician. I mean, like, you know, he's very talented and he's really into it. And he really approached the song in a way that I don't think I would have or could have. And you hear it when he's sort of wandering around the horns and getting in there at times and creating a nice sort of balance. It's pretty cool.
Well, the next part I'm calling the 24-bar dub breakdown is awesome. And this part, the minute that I heard this, I was like, this could kind of go on for 3 or 4 minutes at a show if you wanted it to. And the audience is just going to dance and drink the whole time.
That's what I want to do. So for me, I don't have to do a lot during that period. I just want to listen to stuff.
Just sit with 2 chords. Yeah, you can go sit back on the drum riser for a minute. Take a breather.
Check it out.
I love this part. It's amazing. I was going to go bar by bar. There's just too much going on. This part is killer. The drums go to a classic side stick snare drum breakdown. The use of delay and effects on the guitars and the keys here are awesome. There's like The key thing at the beginning reminds me of something like on a Flock of Seagulls record.
Oh, right on.
It's so like new wave-ish. It's very, very, very cool. The guitars are doing this spacey, almost like video game sound. It sounds like the toggle switch is going on one of the guitars with some flange and delay happening there. I love the huge splashes of verb on the snare. Later, it's about 3/4 like a bang, and the whole soundscape just gets flooded with that verb.
Yep, that was pretty simple. I mean, it wasn't. He could have gone really, and he could really put some delay on that, and it could have been out of control. But he just really wanted to get the verb on there, and I think he saved a little delay for the horns.
That was the next thing. The horn treatment is unbelievable. It's so good. Around bar 11 or 12, I also hear a single low piano chord panned off left.
He's holding it there.
Yeah,
because he's got the C3, so he's got the bottom key and the top key, and the top keys were probably, I can't remember which one's doing the delay sound, and the other one's the key sound. So we can have two voicings, and he's holding it with his right hand. He's playing the melody through the top.
I only really heard the note at that point. Maybe I could go back and listen again, but I love what that did. I love little things that just kind of stick out at you, and that is so cool. There's also, at points, a clean guitar here ghosting the bass.
Yep.
That's just like the oldest trick in the ska book. I've always loved that. And anytime I can do that on a record, I'll jump on.
It's
I
great.
love it. Is. I don't know what it is about the guitar following the bass. It just does it for me.
It's a nice sort of texture, and it kind of, I don't know. For me, it's like, if I relate it to food, it's like when it sort of caramelizes a bit on, like, like something sears a little bit and you get that little crunch. So for me, that's amazing. I love that. I don't know if I played it.
I had no idea you had culinary aspirations.
Well, I do, yes, indeed. But I'm not really there either. But yeah, it's nice. And we try to do it live. It's harder because the song generally, we're probably playing a couple beats per minute faster. So it doesn't sit quite as nicely. So sometimes I don't do it.
We come out of that dub part, and the last thing I want to ask you about that, when's enough? Because that part, there's so much going on. Did you have that conversation at some point, like, guys, there's enough here. We don't need to put another delayed guitar or another keyboard in here?
Absolutely. I mean, we are the Planet Smashers. We're not, we're not the dub Planet Smashers. So you had to pull it back in, and this is also the first song in the album, so you don't want throw people the wrong way. But
no, because I think that's a fault of mine. I tend to, like, when I get a cool part like that and all these things are working, I'm like, well, what else can we shove in there? And like at some point it's like, dude, the meal's cooked. Getting back to food.
Right on. Yeah, I guess, but I think you're probably doing some things right. I don't know, maybe.
That's why I get told to go home. Hey, Chris, the Uber's here. Leave. Yeah. We get into a bridge out of this dub breakdown.
Yeah, we're friends, and that's great, but must we share everything when you do it? Yeah, we're friends, and that's great, but must we share everything when you do it? Must we share everything when you do it? Must we share everything? Too much information.
Yeah, we're friends, and that's great, but must we share everything when you do it? Yeah, we're friends, and that's great, but must we share everything when you do it? Must we share everything when you do it? Must we share everything? You laughed again at me.
Because it's fantastic. And it's just the same line over and over again. But the point is obviously, I'm feeling kind of uncomfortable at the moment. And come on, really? And that's what's going through your head. You're like, how do I get out? How do I get out of this? How do I get out of this?
Is that what you'd call this part, the bridge, Matt?
Yeah, that's in my bridge.
Okay, okay, because it almost felt, the melody was different. It almost felt like a third verse.
It was going to be a third verse, and it is sung in the style of the verse progression, in the same chord progression as the verse, but it became effectively a bridge because there's just so much change going on instrumentally that, and the lyrics don't develop the song any further because it doesn't really need to at this point. And it really, the goal of this was to really kind of make the message being, I'm not really enjoying this, and what can I do?
If there was a spot to put vocal harmonies, I thought it could be here in the bridge, and there isn't any. Was that a discussion?
Yep. I mean, I heard it too. I don't really know why it didn't happen. Sometimes in studio you kind of forget certain things, and then the process has moved on, and you're kind of like, well,
I'm not suggesting they need to be here. I'm saying that there was a spot.
It would have been nice.
This could have been it, but sometimes you leave things sparse, so the last chorus that we're coming to, which the whole kitchen sinks in, that really lifts. But some cool things going on in the bridge here. The first 4 lines, up to the line, but must we share everything when you do it? The horns are playing upstrokes with the guitar here. And on the last 2 lines, the horns branch off and get busier before chorus 3. The last line, must we share everything? It sounds like unison and a harmony on that line, still kind of subtle. And then we get that pop, 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 those 4 pops from the snare to get us into chorus 3.
We share everything. Too much information. Too much information. Too much information. Or am I mistaken and we are closer than I ever knew of it? Too much information. Too much information. Too much information. Information. Too much 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 info.
And yes, I am going to read all these lyrics, even if they are a bit redundant, Matt. I'm going to read them. I'm going to make you laugh one final time. Too much information. Too much information. Too much information. Or am I mistaken and we are closer than I ever knew of it? Too much information. 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 Too much, too much, too much, too much information. Information. Too much information. Too much information. And we end with too much info. You are laughing.
Lyrical brilliance. Look at that. Woo!
You want to talk about hitting him over the head. You
Yeah.
really hit him over the head with this lyric. But you know what? You don't need anything else. Think about it. You got this song. I can already tell you, and that's why I'm striving to write stuff that's, maybe a little simpler, maybe a little bit more linear, because I feel like this is the kind of song you go out and play and the audience is singing it by verse 2. And was that your experience with it? Was the reaction kind of immediate?
It was surprising. Normally when you write new songs, the reaction isn't as good. This one was surprisingly nice and good. People really dug it. Even in Montreal, where they only want to hear, the old songs, this one, people were pretty open to it. And it was nice to see. And people do sing it, and people get a little excited when we play it. And, that's part of it. And again, we're pulling on the Think Too Much Pressure by Selector, and they just outro with that. So that's another thing we wanted. And it's just funny when you read it like that. I think when I typed it out lyrically, I had different fonts, so it looked different on paper.
It looked different. It made you feel like there was more there. Okay, yeah, I get it. I get it. Well, the first 2 lines here, Matt, it's what I'm calling your lead vocal with the harmony. Your voice is right there between my eyes now, the lead vocal.
I am there.
And you saved it right for chorus 3. The third Too Much Information, it's back to those, what I'm calling the backing vocals. It's not the lead vocal out front. On the next Too Much Information, it happens at the same time. There's a vocal overlap with the line "Then I Ever Knew of It." So we're getting another clash there, albeit I don't think it's as crazy as the first one we talked about earlier in the verse.
Yeah, I wanted to tag the verse melody and just sneak it in there, but we talked about ducking the too much info at that point. But I guess I don't know. It's there.
Gotcha. The following Too Much Information about the middle here of the outro chorus. The lead vocals are with the harmony, and the next one, the lead vocals are with the harmony as well as the one after that. And then we go to the backing vocals, and after that, it kind of switches back and forth. The last thing we hear is Too Much Info, and it ends with this little bit of nice verb that kind of just goes away, and that's the end of the tune. I said it at the top, and I just love that a band that's been around for as long as you guys have, that I get to talk about one of their new songs, not necessarily because you want to talk about it. It's the cream of the crop of your set list now. This is one of the more popular Planet Smasher songs, and that's awesome. Congratulations.
Hey, thank you. That's very nice, Chris.
No, I mean it. I think that's what we all strive for. I hate using the word relevant. I mean, what does that even mean in music? But, I want to keep pushing ahead. I think that the songs that, some of the stuff I write now, some of the best stuff is, as I'm sure you do too. And it's nice when the fans embrace that.
That's it. Actually at the point of this airing, the album will be written and done, but we are currently, while this is being recorded, writing this new album. And the thought is in my head, and I think you know what I'm going to get at. It's like, are we ever going to play this live? I mean, like, is this ever going to be on the set, you know? And you put all this effort into it, you record it, you get it all done, and then, you know, you just kind of never play it. It's kind of sad. So the ones that make it, that get into the shorter set times, you know, the 45 minutes, and they're in there and they're part of the set. That's not easy to do at this point, to kick another song out of that established 45-minute set. It takes a bit. And you know, this is one that did.
Absolutely. Well, man, happy New Year to you and the guys. And what else you got coming up? What do you got touring in the next couple of months here in the spring?
Well, we're starting a new album cycle. So I think the album's coming out May 2nd. We're going to be starting in the States a couple weeks before that with a 5-day run around This Is Not Croydon Festival in Bensalem near Philly. Teaming up with Big D for that. And then we're doing a run in Southern Ontario and Quebec 2 weeks later with Big D and Mustard Plug. 5-day rip, and then we're going to go out to Alberta and BC after that. So we're just sort of doing chunks, these 5-day little mini tours, and it's kind of nice. It's going to be good. And you guys are going to be busy too, I hear.
We are going to be busy. We're staying out there and doing our thing as well. And as I said before, just please say hi to the guys. I hope we can meet up and do some shows. And I really appreciate you making some time for us today.
All right, Chris. Hey, thanks a lot.
Don't need to wish for more. Life's repeat to some's a chore. I don't need to think this through. I want to waste my time with you. Tear it up. Oh, we're gonna tear it up. Yeah, we're gonna tear it up. Oh, we're gonna tear it up.
Hey everybody, that was a fun one. I really like Matt. I can't wait to talk about this episode with Chris in the rap segment that's coming right up after a few words from our sponsors.
The Helping Friendly podcast explores the music and fan experience of Phish through interviews and deep dives on shows and tours. For more than 10 years, we've created insightful and fun discussions about our favorite band, and with the help of our guests and thematic series, we're still discovering new angles of appreciation for Phish. And when the band is on tour, we provide a review of every show the following day. As one of our listeners said, any Phish fans that enjoy meandering conversations and incredible insight on new and old Phish shows, this is for you. Highly recommend. It's not just about the band and the shows, it's about the journey getting there. Throughout 2024, we're going to be running down the top 25 Phish tours of all time, and that'll be interspersed with show reviews and regular episodes. Join us and check out the Helping Friendly podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, this is Tuck from Fit for a King, an off-road minivan. Every week I bring you fun interviews alongside your favorite metalcore entertainers with my new podcast, Get Tucked. Join me every Monday with bands like Counterparts, Crystal Lake, like Moths to Flames, and many more. We play unsigned and undiscovered bands, deep dive into each artist's history, and of course provide the greatest breakdowns in current metalcore. Tune in to Get Tucked every Monday, out now through Sound Talent Media.
Hey, this is Dewey Halpus, host of Peer Pleasure on the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. Join me each week as I explore another long-form conversation with one of your favorite musicians, actors, comedians, or creatives. From Chino Moreno of the Deftones, John Gorley of Portugal the Man, to Fat Mike from NoFX and Ian MacKaye from Fugazi and Minor Threat, we go all over the map. From Fall Out Boy to Slayer, Peer Pleasure has it all. Check us out now on Sound Talent Media.
One Hit Thunder is a podcast where we both celebrate and have a good laugh about bands and artists that had just one hit that we all know. Each week, we're joined by a guest from the world of music or comedy to learn more than you ever thought you would about some songs that you can't forget. And we decide if they brought the One Hit Thunder or were nothing more than a one-hit blunder. Look, if you listen to the show, you're probably going to laugh, and I guarantee you're going to crush next time the bar has music trivia. Tag Team, Jane Child, Meredith Brooks, Looking Glass, Sean Mullins, Eiffel 65, EMF, Crash Test Dummies, Crazy Town, Chumbawamba. We have hundreds of episodes in our back catalog and a new episode each week, so pass the Dutchie, make sure you're connected, and subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your pods.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes a podcast, email your best song, via MP3 only, and a short bio to band you might not know at gmail.com. This week's featured artist is Goalkeeper, a pop-punk band from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, consisting of Ryan Beebe on vocals and bass, Mark Giuliano on guitar, and Cody Ritchie on the drums. They recently released an EP called Pins and Needles. Here's a snippet of their song, Black Hole.
Chance I've got, so what do I do now? Black hole, take me somewhere far away from here. Don't wait for me. This is how I disappear.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
Another great episode, Chris, and I'm going to list some songs here. Creep by Radiohead, REM Losing My Religion, Sweet Home Alabama, Fleetwood Mac Dreams, Pixies Where Is My Mind, Free Fallin'. Chris, all these songs, you talked about it, linear as far as the chord structure and just relying on the dynamics of the song changing as it goes through. These are all hit songs I just named, and also same thing goes for Too Much Information. You have different dynamics, different elements coming in and out, but it's based around just the same chord structure throughout pretty much the whole song. Maybe some of these songs, there's a little bit of a diversion in the bridge or whatever, but you don't need to go crazy with the chord selection and try to be, as you would put it, all highbrow with the, the chord choices in the song to write a great song.
I had mentioned it. You look back at those early ska and reggae records, it was 2 chords. And they'd rock that. Sometimes extended jams, they'd rock it for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes. And, the audience just kind of grooving and dancing. And it's hard to remember that, and certainly for every one of those, every Tom Petty song that's linear and simple, he's got ones that are complicated. So that are hits as well. So you just kind of never know. But sometimes it doesn't have to be busy to be good, Chris.
That's right. Hey, Chris, sorry I didn't answer your phone call last night. It's funny, when you said that, you called me out mid-episode. But it's funny because I think about teen Chris in the 90s, huge Less Than Jake fan, if Chris from Less Than Jake was calling him on the phone and then forgot to call him back. I just thought that was a funny moment. But
I appreciate that. Jeez.
Yeah, but I think it is crazy. I can't think of another song that starts with that sort of like pickup note. It's such a strange start to a song. It is jarring, but it's also really cool.
I went back and listened to the first one I found on YouTube, and I said, well, that must have been a bad upload. Went to the next one. I went, what is going on? Went to the third one. I said, okay, enough of YouTube. Maybe it's the same person uploading all these. I'll go to Spotify. Same thing. And then I went to Apple. Same thing. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's the way they envision it. And it is jarring.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like something that would be a drummer's choice.
Yeah.
A drummer would think like, oh, that'd be cool if we did this. I love that. Chris, this is out of left field, but I love that you cited MTV's Remote Control. Big Remote Control fan.
Do you remember that when he would recite the lyrics? I forgot all about that until the other day, and I keep meaning to bring it up.
Yeah. MTV's Remote Control, I had the Nintendo game of that back in the day, and I've talked about that in recent years because our good friend Matt Kelly is a big fan of Remote Control. Like, I think he watched every episode at some point or something. Great show. Colin Quinn. Who was the host? Ken Ober?
Ken Ober, Colin Quinn, Kari Wurr was like the spokesmodel of the show. And there was another lady at some point. One more thing before we move on from Remote Control. My dad's brother, my uncle, was on Remote Control in 1988.
Wow.
Yes.
That's crazy. Is his episode out there on YouTube or anything?
No. So I went and found an episode list, and they list every one, or so it seems, with names, but his is not in there. His name's Daryl. There's another Daryl, but it's spelled differently, and it wasn't. He told me the 3 people that were in his episode. He thinks he has it on a VHS cassette. But anyways, Matt laughed every time I recited Planet Smashers lyrics to him.
Yeah, dude, I'm surprised more people don't do that. And because not only is it funny the way you read it, like, you're not trying to be funny, but it's funny. We're laughing with you, not at you.
No, I get it. Yeah. I mean, I have to kind of almost read them like I'm reading a novel, because otherwise, if you read them funny, it's going to be funny. If you read them too serious, so yeah.
Yeah, but I think the laugh sometimes is almost like a nervous reaction to having your thoughts and emotions and words read back to you. No one has ever experienced that. We've talked about that before. It has to be so rare that someone reads to you your entire song lyric back to you. Like, that's such a strange experience. I think that might be half of the reason he's laughing is like,
well, it is. And you know, sometimes words just by themselves, no matter what they're saying, could come off corny or forced or silly. But when they're sung and put into composition or song, they come to life and you don't feel that corniness.
Dude, I mean, honestly, if you had Paul McCartney and John Lennon sitting in front of you and you were like, I want to hold your hand. I want to hold your hand. Like,
yeah, that's a great example.
They'd be cracking up.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Well, and again, I love the simplicity of the song. I love that too much information is the hook that you get throughout the whole tune.
Right.
That dub part. I want to write a song with a part similar to that, to where we go live. Hey guys, we're taking 6 minutes. You know, let the audience go have a beer break or whatever they want to do, and we're still going to be here. And I love that. I think that's really cool. And he also told me it sounds like they did have some restraint here with that dub part. He said, you know, we kind of knew that, you know, here's the part. We're not going to put too much more into that. And I also thought it was funny that his bandmates call him out for different vocalisms, because I get called out for that too.
I wanted to talk about that too. You brought up some of these vocalists that have so much personality in their delivery. Fred Schneider, David Byrne, Danny Elfman, these people that can almost slip into character. Mike Patton can slip into character. You know what I mean? And I feel like anytime that I've sung on a recording, with the exception of Vipers, I do get into character for that band. But for the most part, I'm just trying, for lack of a better word, to sing as pretty as possible, as good as I can sing. I'm trying. And sometimes I'm like, oh God, I hate the tone of my voice right there. But it is such a different approach to slip into some sort of character in your voice.
Mm-hmm. Well, and on those last two lines in verse 2, or actually it's the 2 lines before the last line, he really gets into character there.
Yeah.
His voice, the melody changes, and there's a knack to that, to have it not come off, because how many ska songs in particular, I'm going to call out the ska genre, do the vocals just get beyond cheesy? I mean, you can't even, they're unlistenable.
Yeah, sure. But, you know, sometimes something over the top and cheesy, I use that term loosely, can become so memorable and become a hook. Chris, you mentioned Fred Schneider. Got me a Chrysler, it's as big as a whale, and it's about to set sail. That is such a crazy hook. That has never left my mind since the first time I heard Love Shack.
Well, yeah, and makes you wonder. We've asked this before, Chris. I've asked guests, if he hadn't sung that particular line like that, would the song has been a big of a hit?
Probably not, right? And you think about...
I don't know.
If you would have done something like that in a Less Than Jake song, your bandmates probably would have looked at you like you were crazy and like, no, we're not doing that, right? But it could have made a song that much bigger, right?
Is that why we don't have a number 1 single? Is that what you're saying?
Dude, I think all the time when it comes to my own band that maybe we need to be 20% more ridiculous. If that makes sense.
Phew, I don't know if my band can get any more ridiculous.
Dude, I don't know. You write nice, deep down, they're pretty songs. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
thank you.
I feel that way too. It's like, yeah, they're in the shape of a rock or punk song, but deep down they're like beautiful songs. And we try to make them, when you step up to a mic, Chris, you're trying to sing as well as you can possibly sing, you know? And I don't know, sometimes a little bit of ridiculousness can go pretty far sometimes, I think. That's all I'm saying.
Gotcha. Well, when I step up to the mic here too, Chris, I not only try to put on a good podcast with you, but I also have to tell everybody we need to keep the lights on here. Head over to ChrisDeMakes.com and you can go sign up for our supporting cast. You can get all the info over there and you can help Chris and I keep the lights on over here at Chris DeMakes, the podcast you know and hopefully love. And because you love it so much, you've been leaving us those 5-star reviews on Apple. And I know, Chris, you have one ready for us.
I do have one ready for us. And also, I want to reinforce the joining the supporting cast. That's big. Maybe you can help Chris and I afford a Chrysler as big as a whale. if you go join our supporting cast at chrisdemakes.com.
I'd love that.
We put a lot of love into those after party episodes. So I hope that you all love them as well. But yes, I do have a review for us today, Chris. This one comes from a user called Grocer's Pride. So Grocer's Pride wrote to us, great insight, gave us 5 stars, and wrote, Chris D brings the people behind some of your favorite songs on to explain how they came about. You'll get to meet the people behind the music, the lyrics, and even the production of the songs you've been singing for years. What was the inspiration behind the song? Where in their lives were they when they wrote it? How did it change their career? You'll learn that sometimes the story behind the song is sometimes more interesting than the final product. Do yourself a favor and give this podcast a chance. You won't regret it. As an added bonus, this podcast has honestly made me a better songwriter. Wow.
All right.
These reviews just get better and better that I read every week, Chris. That's a really good one.
Well, thank you very much. It was what was it?
Grocer's Pride.
Grocer's Pride. Thank you very much. And head over to Apple or Spotify and leave us a review if you would. It helps us out a lot. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. We got a Facebook group. We got an Instagram page for Chris Makes a Podcast. And I want to thank this week's guest, Matt Collyer, for sitting in with us. And we'll see you next week.
Kenny wasn't like the other kids.
TV mattered. Nothing else did.
Girl said yes, but he said
no. Now he's got his own game show.
Hey friends, have you been loving Krista Makes a Podcast? Well, spread the love by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't hesitate to share what you enjoy about the show in an actual written review on Apple Podcasts. Not only does it help more people discover us, but we often read reviews in the wrap segment of the show. It's a quick, cost-free way to support us and takes just a minute of your time. Your reviews mean the world to us and help us keep the podcast thriving. Thank you for being a listener, and thank you for being a friend.
Hi, I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. We want to tell you about our podcast, None But the Brave, which is dedicated to taking a deep dive into the work of Bruce Springsteen.
We're currently in our 5th season. Our latest episodes focus heavily on Bruce's 2024 tour and have featured such guests as Anthony Castrovince from MLB Network and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
We're also covering the 40th anniversary of Bruce's biggest record, Born in the USA. And as part of that, coming up this week, Uprock's cultural critic Stephen Hyden returns to the show for a fascinating hour-long conversation about his new book, There Was Nothing You Could Do, Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA and the End of the Heartland.
To listen, you can go to our website, mbtbpodcast.com, or subscribe on your preferred podcasting platform.
We hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.
Every listener to Too Much Effing Perspective knows that my co-host Alan Keller is a music nerd. And right up there in his pantheon with the Beatles and Elvis Costello is The Clash. So Alan, it's one thing for you to be a nerd, but how did you rope in a cool guy, 311's Nick Hexum, into a full-on Clash geek fest on our show?
Well, first of all, Alex, it was your idea.
Oh, right.
Second, Nick actually jammed with The Clash's Joe Strummer in a supergroup that included Flea and Tom Morello.
Okay, well, there is that.
And finally, one member of The Clash cited This Is Spinal Tap, the reason our show even exists, as his favorite movie.
Which one?
Hey, if you want to find out, you got to listen to Too Much Effing Perspective. That's Too Much EFFING Perspective. The only podcast you crank up to 11.